Hi, my name's Eric, and I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Falmouth Enterprise, dated Friday, December 12th of 2025. That date's important because we'll repeat this reading through Tuesday of next week. We will start with the weather, since many of our listeners enjoy hearing it on the day of publication, which is Fridays. The weather forecast for this afternoon is sunny and breezy, and at night, mostly clear. A high of around 35 is expected, a low around 19 in the overnight, very chilly. Tomorrow during the day, it'll be partly sunny with a high of 41. At night, cloudy, a chance of snow on Saturday night, a low around 30. The extended forecast for Sunday calls for clouds with snow possibly mixed with rain likely during the day, and mostly cloudy with a chance of snow showers at night. A high of 36 on Sunday with a low of 21, and the Patriots game should not be affected because it's mainly along the coast, and of course the Cape is the coast, basically. So the inland areas for a change are unlikely to be affected. The headline above the fold, if there was such a thing in a digital newspaper: Steamship Authority finalizes contract with new general manager. The Steamship Authority Board voted on December 4th to finalize a contract with Alex Kriska, completing what Board Chairman James Malkin described as one of the most long, very involved, and very thorough hiring processes he's ever been a part of. Kriska will officially begin his role on January 12th, but will take part in a joint port council meeting later this month. According to a signed employment contract between Kriska and the SSA, Kriska's salary begins at $225,000 annually, with reviews and potential adjustments starting July 1st. The new general manager will also be able to participate in all fringe benefits on the start date and receive 1 week of vacation per 3 months worked. Business expenses are reimbursed, and the authority will be providing a sports utility vehicle or mid-size car at its full cost, including insurance, fuel, maintenance, and repairs. Kriska's employment would be for 3 years, ending on December 31st of 2028. Unless either party provides 6 months advance written notice to terminate, the contract will continue under the same terms. The new general manager will relocate from the West Coast to lead the Cape and Islands ferry service, bringing with him a 3-decade career in maritime and aviation operations. He currently serves as Chief Operating Officer for PROP, a San Francisco-based commuter ferry company, where he began in 2017 as Director of Client Development and Business Operations before advancing to COO, Chief Operating Officer. His earlier career includes managing fuel logistics for the U.S. Military Sealift Command and as General Manager of Maritime Ticketing Services for Acme Technologies. Kriska has also held operations leadership roles at Covenant Aviation Security, where he oversaw security screening operations for the TSA at San Francisco International Airport. He holds a degree in marine transportation from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and an MBA in global business operations from San Francisco State University. During his November 7th interview, Kriska emphasized that his initial focus will be listening and learning rather than rushing into major changes. "The first challenge I'll have is giving people the confidence that I can do it," he said, noting that as an external hire, building trust will be essential. He said he plans to rely on the knowledge of current executives, including outgoing General Manager Robert B. Davis, who will stay on as a senior advisor to the General Manager. In September of 2024, Davis announced he would step down this fall after nearly 40 years with the Steamship Authority. Under his new employment agreement, he'll remain with the organization as an advisor for 18 months, and the contract will automatically continue unless either party provides 6 months written notice to end it. Davis had originally planned to finish his tenure as general manager at the end of October and transition immediately into the advisory role. However, he agreed to stay on until a new general manager was selected and able to assume the responsibilities. Looking ahead, Kriska said in his interview that he wants the authority to seek revenue sources beyond ticket sales and pursue state funding tied to Massachusetts' 2050 net zero emissions goals. His long-term vision includes converting the aging ferry fleet to hybrid or fully electric vessels. Kriska was chosen over the other finalist, current Chief Operating Officer Mark Amundsen. Amundsen, who joined the SSA in 2019, told the board during his general manager interview that if selected, he had hoped to help make the organization go from good to great. Before becoming COO, he served as Director of Marine Operations and Director of Engineering and Maintenance. When asked if he would remain in his role if not selected, Amundsen said yes. Quite frankly, I like my job. I love my job as Chief Operating Officer, he said. During the December 4th virtual board meeting, Chairman Malkin described the search as very, very long, very involved, very thorough process, calling it arduous as well as interesting. His remarks echoed what the board publicly discussed in October when members said intense public criticism, slander, and agitators had hindered and even jeopardized the search, causing some candidates to withdraw late in the process. In total, the authority considered 131 applicants. I look forward to this being the start of a very successful time for the Steamship Authority as we move forward into the brave new age that we face, Malkin added before the board voted to formalize Kriska's contract. The other headline above the fold in the Falmouth Enterprise of December 12th, Department Heads Discuss Benefits of 8th Grade at High School by Katie Nelson. Department heads joined schools principals Thomas Bushy and Alan Harris at the school committee's meeting on Tuesday, December 9th. Together, they discussed the challenges and advantages of moving 8th grade onto the high school campus and presenting optimistic opinions for 8th grade opportunities. Grade configurations within Falmouth schools are subject to change due to the Navigating the Future Together proposals, which include the Lawrence School building renovation, the potential creation of an early learning center, merging elementary schools, and closing Morse Pond School. Harris, the principal of Falmouth High School, began the presentation by addressing the comments he has heard from the committee and the community regarding the 8th grade move to the high school, which he said include concerns about student safety, increased learning emotional gaps, and student academic and athletic acceleration. Although a fully formed plan for the future hasn't been laid out yet, the school committee hasn't voted on what the grade configurations will be, Harris said there are general ideas on how to keep 8th grade students separated from high schoolers. The bell schedule and the school day start times could be adjusted, Harris said. Michael Feeney, the social studies department head for grades 7 through 12, said having 8th graders in the high school could create more opportunities for accelerated courses. Students who are high academic achievers could take honors courses, history courses, and accelerated math courses. Teachers are excited to build out, he said, and create new opportunities. We're up for the challenge to dream, Feeney said. Molly C. Drain, the district's world language department head for grades 7 through 12, said 8th graders could have the opportunity to accelerate faster to AP level and earn the seal of biliteracy before graduating if they're on the high school campus. Lori Gatchell, the mathematics department head for grades 7 through 12, said resources and interventions for students who stumble with math will be accessible at the high school. Students will be able to strengthen their mathematical capacity. School committee member Kelly Welch asked Harris if teaching licensure would be an issue if 8th graders moved on to the high school campus. Licensure should not be an obstacle, Feeney said, as many teaching licenses stretch from 5th to 12th grade. He said teachers could have more options and flexibility for courses they'd like to teach too. Member Katrina Nevin asked about student safety. She asked how 8th grade students could be kept separated from high schoolers if they're integrated into accelerated academic courses or high school sports, art, and music programs. Harris said those concerns would be discussed with the community once a decision on grade configurations is finalized. He said it's important to remember that the planning and decision-making process is not happening under crisis. He said options for safety aren't limited by school day start or end times. There are 3 cafeterias in the high school, Harris said, and a lunch schedule could be worked out to accommodate separation between 8th graders and upperclassmen. Harris added that sectioning the building off to potentially create an 8th and 9th grade academy is also a possibility. Harris reiterated that these decisions would be made with community input once a decision on grade configuration is made by the school committee. Member Margaret Souza asked about academic, social, and emotional supports for students who do not accelerate and start to fall behind their peers. Harris said the continuity of care, due to teacher communication for students on the high school campus, will allow interventions to be put in place as soon as students need them. Souza told her fellow committee members that one of the most important factors for student success will be determined by how much time teachers and administrators have to prepare. Chairwoman Terry Medeiros said special workshop discussions are being planned for January. She said it'd be ideal if parents, community members, teachers, and school committee members can talk in small groups and have a productive dialogue. Medeiros added that a decision on grade configuration needs to be made by the school committee by March of 2026. Discussions on grade configurations are set to continue until the committee is prepared to vote. Over the course of the past year, the committee has heard a presentation on Superintendent Lori S. Dewar's recommendation for grade configuration, presentations from the principals, and input from early-stage community forums. The next headline, School Budget Plans to Increase by 5.8%, by Katie Nelson. A 5.8% increase is anticipated in the school budget for fiscal year 2027. School administrators said that the suggested budget for the coming fiscal year is $69.4 million, up from $65.7 million in fiscal year 26. Director of Finance Paul J. Dart and Superintendent Lori S. Dewar gave a presentation on strategic budget priorities, future program growth, security upgrades, salary increases, and more during Tuesday's school committee meeting. Dewar said the district's top priorities are school safety and security, offering opportunities for high achievement to all students, covering increased costs for special education services, and increased funding to support future program growth. There are also important budget realities to consider, Dewar said, such as the unpredictability of federal entitlement grants and rising salary, non-salary, and special education expenses. Safety improvements coming in fiscal year 27 include hiring a third school resource officer, which was approved by a unanimous vote of the school committee later in the meeting, as well as hiring 2 safety monitors who will monitor a school security command center. Town meeting also approved funding for school safety improvements under Article 5, $100,000 in free cash allocated to the police department to support school safety upgrades. Dart said a software contract for advanced security software would likely be under a 3-year contract, though he said no software services have been selected yet. He added that the schools will likely need to put forth a capital article at the April town meeting to assist with associated costs. As is the case with the 2 school resource officers already working in schools, the salary for the third officer will be split between the police department and the school district. Dart said a total of $206,000 is allocated in the fiscal year 27 budget for security. An officer has not been hired or trained for the position yet, but will be responsible for monitoring all 4 elementary schools. Dewar said she's hopeful that an officer will be trained and ready for the 2026-27 school year. Out-of-district, known as OOD students, represent less than 1% of the student population, Dart said. These students require specialized school placement based on academic and social-emotional needs. The budget for OOD students in fiscal year 27 was calculated by accounting for the students who are currently in OOD placements and students in consideration for OOD placements. For fiscal year 27, total out-of-district expenses, including transportation and tuition costs, are budgeted at $4.5 million, up approximately $500,000 from fiscal year 26. The schools budgeted $2.13 million for OOD transportation and tuition, Dart said. Other sources of funding for OOD expenses are covered by $1.57 million in circuit breaker funding and $920,000 from the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, known as IDEA grant. Salaries for fiscal year 27 are budgeted at $54,083,833, a $2.48 million increase from fiscal year 26, Dart said. He added that several salaried employees are at the mid to high pay range, and fewer employees are retiring this year. Non-salary expenses have also increased by over $1 million at $10.9 million for fiscal year 27. Though Chapter 70 and grant funding is projected to flatline in the coming year, the district is expecting $1,575,866 in circuit breaker program funding. Circuit Breaker is a state program that reimburses school districts for some spending on special education costs. Dewar said expanding programming would be possible in fiscal year 28. Some possibilities include expanding the world language program into the elementary schools, which has been an ambition of the district for a few years, Dewar said. She also said a welcome center staffed with a Portuguese-speaking interpreter to assist multilingual families is another hope for the future. There are no plans yet for what building a welcome center would be located in, Dewar said. The budget presentation will be made to the PTO in January, and after that, the school committee and the finance committee will review and vote to approve or deny the budget. The next headline on the Falmouth Enterprise of Friday, December 12th, weekly grocery pickups help sustain Falmouth Service Center's food pantry by Lynn Hutchinson. It was 8:30 a.m. on a cold Monday morning in December, and the back of the Falmouth Mall, home to Shaw's, Walmart, TJ Maxx, and Michael's, was busy with activity. Trucks lined up at the loading docks, each working to position itself to unload the day's inventory. Drivers shifted their vehicles in small increments, making room as more deliveries arrived. Among them was a van from the Falmouth Service Center. 2 volunteers bundled in hats, gloves, and coats pulled into the same area where the commercial trucks were arranging themselves. "Keep coming," one volunteer called out as the other maneuvered the van between 2 trucks toward the grocery store's loading dock. "Stop," he shouted a moment later. This was a routine part of Don Ruggieri and Gene Riley's week, beginning each Monday behind the grocery store as the morning deliveries took shape. While the other drivers were there to drop off goods, the volunteers had come to pick up donations that the store had set aside for the food bank. This pickup program is one of many the Service Center relies on to keep its food pantry shelves stocked. Grocery stores such as Shaw's, Stop & Shop, Windfall Market, and Aldi have committed to setting aside produce, dry goods, frozen meals, baked goods, proteins, and other items that might expire soon, cannot be sold in time, or are still usable but not sellable. On Mondays, Ruggieri and Riley make their rounds to Aldi and Shaw's, the first stop. Milk, bread, and eggs make up most of the food collected at Shaw's. 2 shopping carts filled with dry goods were stationed by the back door, marked with a note reading Falmouth Service Center Monday 12/8 pickup. The 2 volunteers have their routine down. Ruggieri grabs the carts, Riley heads to the walk-in refrigerator, wheeling out 3 crates of milk. Riley stays at van level, stacking boxes passed to him by Ruggieri. In between handoffs, the 2 find time to talk, checking in on family, discussing their plans for the week, and most importantly to them, reviewing the Sunday football games from the day before. The program also relies on participation from store employees. At Aldi, signs posted on shelves guide workers on what's acceptable to donate. The rules are straightforward. Items may have damaged outer packaging if inner seals are intact. Cans with minor dents are acceptable, and labels must be legible with no damage to seals. Packaging that's ripped and taped back together is not accepted, and baked goods must be frozen. While Ruggieri and Riley often pick up cereal, soda, crackers, and protein bars, the bulk of the Aldi donation is meat. Their gloves and hats come in handy as they step into the walk-in freezer to collect chicken and steak. Moving quickly, they load the goods and close the roll-up freezer door behind them. In just an hour and a half, the morning's donations are collected. The volunteers transport the food to the service center where staff and other volunteers wait with carts to unload, sort, and organize the items in the pantry's warehouse. The service center also offers financial assistance, clothing support, and holiday meals, and has stepped in to help residents, government employees, and military personnel during various government shutdowns and cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. "It's a good feeling," Ruggieri said. "The whole operation, the purpose behind it, is probably why Gene is doing it, why I'm doing it, and why all these people are here. It's helping out the underprivileged. It's nice to see." Ruggieri, who's been volunteering for about a year, first got involved to cover the months when Riley spent the winter in Florida. The operation runs year-round, every Monday and Thursday. Moving inside the paper, there are several meetings scheduled for next week. The Traffic Advisory Committee will meet Monday at 9 a.m. in the Town Hall. The Board of Health will meet at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall. The Select Board will meet at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall. All of those are on Monday. The Falmouth Cultural Council will meet Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall. The Water Quality Management Committee will meet Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. in the Town Hall. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging DEIB Advisory Committee will meet Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. The Conservation Commission will meet Wednesday at 7 p.m. via Zoom. The Agricultural Commission will meet Thursday at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall. And the Zoning Board of Appeals will meet Thursday at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall. Since there is a Select Board meeting, here is the Select Board agenda. The Select Board set to meet on Monday, December 15th at the Town Hall. The meeting begins at 6 p.m., begins with the agenda, open session, then executive session. A, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining of the New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 61, with police sergeants. Open session, call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, proclamation, Falmouth Fund's 15-year anniversary, then recognition, announcements, public comment, and the consent agenda and licenses. 1. Consider approval of annual license renewals for 2026. 2. Consider approval of an application by Woods Hole Golf Club at 130 Quisette Avenue for a change of officers for its all-alcoholic beverages club license. B. Administrative orders. Consider the approval of the North Falmouth Woods Phase 2 conservation restriction. 2. Consider a vote to approve the request for a variance to sign code freestanding signs from J&J Sign Company on behalf of the First Congregational Church of Falmouth at 68 Main Street to replace the existing sign at the rear of the property on Catherine Lee Bates Road. Then public hearings, tax classification hearing, and then business. A. Update on the implementation of plastic reduction regulations by Scott McGann, health agent. B. Consider a vote to conditionally approve a conservation restriction for Zero Drift Road. C. Report for the Historical Commission. D. Report for the Water Quality Management Committee. E. The Youth Baseball Field Project update. F. Presentation and discussion of affordable housing tax exemption for year-round rental properties. G. Consider a vote to approve preliminary design of the East Falmouth Library for submission to the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program for the purpose of securing a grant for construction. H. Discuss and consider a vote to approve an application to the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund from 85 Brick Kiln, LLC, for the project located at 85 Brick Kiln Road. Discuss and consider a vote to transmit to the Finance Committee the recommended fiscal year 2027 operating budget. And J. Consider a vote to submit a letter to the Governor's Office in support of the Rail-to-Trail Bicycle Path project. Minutes. Review and consider a vote to approve minutes of meetings October 27th of 2025 and December 1st of 2025. Then the town manager's supplemental report, the select board reports, and future agenda items are discussing seasonal communities designation, discuss placement for conservation restrictions on remaining Long Pond parcels, discuss correspondence and media inquiry policies, discuss retail cannabis dispensary license, LGBTQ plus sanctuary town, discuss walkability improvements, discuss creation of a conservation land survey and database, hear an update and discuss the Joint Base Cape Cod master planning process, discuss community forum on ICE and immigration issues, discuss current town website functionality and potential redesign, discuss 10-year spend on consultant fees, depth forecasts, discussion with the Finance Committee, and discuss petitioning the late state legislature for changes to Chapter 40B law. Those are all future agenda items, and that's your agenda for the Select Board meeting on Monday at 6 p.m. With Select Board briefs, library designs unveiled, fees increased, and appointments made by Lynn Hutchinson. Initial designs for the new East Falmouth Library were presented to the Select Board on December 1st. Taking feedback from 2 community forums on September 30th and November 5th, Udinzello Architecture drew up the designs for a new one-floor library. The nearly 9,000-square-foot library features floor-to-ceiling windows, a screened porch, a multipurpose room accessible during after hours for meetings and community events, and individual study rooms. A building's basement will house the electrical and water service equipment and be available for general storage. Select Board Vice Chairwoman Heather Goldstone describes the design as gorgeous and similar to a nature center. "I love that," she said. While Goldstone spoke highly of the overall design, she asked that homey elements be included that the current library provides, as well as the history of the neighborhood. She also voiced concerns about light pollution with the amount of large windows designed into the initial plans. hands. The East Falmouth Library was originally built as a family home in the 1960s and then converted to a library in the 70s. Selectman Douglas Brown spoke of his dissatisfaction with the modern style of the design and pushed for a larger basement that can reduce the footprint of the library. The Select Board approved several fee increases that will be implemented in the new year. The Beach Department will be increasing non-resident beach parking permit stickers to $85, up from $80. This will help support a fee decrease for family swimming lessons. Previously, the fee for family swimming lessons was $10. Now, one family with children will pay $5. The Inspectional Services Department will increase late fees to $100. Current late fee is $50. Mooring fees will increase by $5. The increase will offset the climbing dredging cost. According to Marine and Environmental Services, the fee will amount to about $14,250 in revenue. Mooring late fees will be doubled to $100. The Police Department will be increasing the solicitor fee from $10 to $30. A 2-week summer adventure program run by the Recreation Department will cost $200 per session, while 1-week sessions will cost $100 per session. Teen summer camps will cost $300. That's up from $175. Youth sailing will increase by $50 to $125, while youth golf will increase from $75 to $100. Many of the town's non-union wage employees will receive a 2% cost of living adjustment known as a COLA. There are 57 full-time and 2 part-time technical, administrative, and management employees who will receive this increase. For fiscal year 2027, this will cost approximately $132,000. A 2% COLA for non-aligned employees, which includes 18 year-round part-time and 7 library substitute positions, will cost the town about $11,000. The town's seasonal group consists of more than 200 employees, and the wage increase will cost $28,000. Also, Miles O'Brien was appointed to the Energy Committee. O'Brien's been a West Falmouth resident since June of 2022 and has 40 years of experience as a journalist, starting at local papers, eventually working as a science correspondent at CNN and PBS. I've had the wonderful experience of communicating to a large audience things that are very relevant to the Energy Committee, O'Brien said. I think Falmouth, with its community of smart people who understand all of this, has a great opportunity to lead the Commonwealth, and I would love to be a part of that. Joining the Freshwater Ponds Advisory Committee is marine chemistry and geochemistry scientist Matthew Long. Long is the chief scientist at Subtidal, a research organization focused on developing aquatic monitoring technology for climate mitigation. I think that my background is particularly well suited to bring a strong science-focused approach to the committee to protect our freshwater resources, he told the Select Board. When asked about conflict of interest, his position at Subtidal, and being on the town committee, Long said it could be a very synergistic opportunity and has spoken in advance with committee members to address any current or future conflicts. Also, the town will be putting out a request for proposals for audit services. The town hasn't issued an RFP for audit services in 10 years. Industry best practices suggest municipalities seek proposals every 3 years. A small review team will evaluate responses to the RFP. The committee will likely consist of the town's director of finance, an accountant, and 1 other staff member. The town manager will review the recommendation, and the Select Board will decide who is awarded the contract. The Select Board also approved the schedule for the April Town meeting for April 6th, as well as the Board's 2026 meeting schedule. Aquatic Brewing LLC was approved for a change of manager to its Farmer Brewery pouring license. A request by Bad Martha's Brewery for a change of manager for its Farmer Brewery Farmer Winery pouring licenses was approved, and the board approved West Falmouth Library for a special wine and malt beverages license for its annual tree lighting event. The Select Board accepted a donation of material and labor for Matt Sousa Parcel Dirt Roadway. The Coastal Resilience Division was given the green light to submit a grant application to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Planning 2.0 grant. The Select Board will sign a letter of commitment in support of the grant application. A $500 donation from Marino Foundation to the Falmouth Fire Rescue Department was also accepted by the board. We are at the midway point in our reading. Regular listeners are aware it's at this stage that we move to a different kind of local news, which are the obituaries, death notices, and memorials listed in the Enterprise for that week. And in the Falmouth Enterprise of Friday, December 12th of 2025, the first obituary is of Mary Ann Macauda of Falmouth, who died on November 28th at the age of 81. She grew up with a strong sense of family, kindness, and community, values she carried throughout her life. She was married to Joseph Macauda for 55 years. Visiting hours will be held on Saturday, December 27th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations in West Falmouth. A funeral mass will follow at 11 a.m. at St. Elizabeth Seton Catholic Church in North Falmouth, with burial to be private. The next obituaries of Arthur E. Jones of Falmouth, who passed at the age of 86 on December 2nd. Working his entire career as a draftsman with various companies, he retired from working for Entergy at the Plymouth Nuclear Power Station. He was predeceased by his wife. A celebration of life will be held on Monday, January 5th at 11 a.m. at St. Barnabas's Episcopal Church in Falmouth. The next obituaries of Doreen J. McKenna of Falmouth, formerly of Sandwich, who passed at the age of 68 on December 3rd. Known as Dot, she dedicated many years of her life to caring for others through her work as a nurse at Falmouth Hospital. Services and burial will take place at a later date. The next obituary is of Charles H. Clifford of Falmouth, a U.S. Army veteran and a fixture at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, who died November 24th at the age of 88. Thank you for your service, Mr. Clifford. A celebration of life will be held on Saturday, January 10th at 1 p.m. on the 5th floor of the Clark Building on the Quisette campus at Huey. The next obituary is of Robert W. Hampton of Bourne, a U.S. Navy veteran who passed at the age of 87 on December 3rd. Mr. Hampton, thank you for your service. Spending most of his life as a craftsman, his early years were spent working with his father in boatyards, learning how to build wooden boats. These skills would later be put into use building a boat with his two grandsons. At age 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy, becoming part of the Navy Seabees, where he got the opportunity to travel and see parts of the world. He was predeceased by his wife of 62 years, Carolyn Hampton. Visiting hours will be held Monday, December 15th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations in Falmouth, with burial to follow at the Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne. The next obituary is of John D. Tuckwood, who at the age of 85 passed on December 9th in Falmouth. He was born in Philadelphia and was a devoted husband to Norma Tuckwood, with whom he shared 25 years of marriage. He proudly served in the U.S. Coast Guard, retiring after a distinguished and honorable career. Thank you, Mr. Tuckwood, for your service. Extended families and friends also have a very special place in his life. Services will be held at Chapman Funerals and Cremations at 584 West Falmouth Highway, Falmouth, on Monday, December 15th from 10 to 11 a.m. It will be followed by burial at the Massachusetts National Cemetery in Bourne. The next obituary is of Mary Elizabeth Campbell, known as Molly, who passed on November 24th of 2025, surrounded by family. She was a gourmet chef, a jazz aficionado, and a singer. She owned the renowned Molly's Restaurant and Black Cat Tavern Jazz Club, which featured many internationally known jazz and blues musicians. A funeral mass will be held at St. Patrick's Catholic Church, 511 Main Street in Falmouth on Saturday, January 3rd, 2026 at 10 a.m. with a reception to follow. In lieu of flowers, please make a donation in Molly's name to Falmouth Jazz, Inc. The next obituary is of Arthur E. Jones of Falmouth, who passed at the age of 86 on December 2nd. He was raised in Randolph. It was there he met Judith Watmow, and they were married at Trinity Episcopal Church in Randolph, her family's church. Becoming close with his in-laws, he joined their church and became a member of the vestry. He was predeceased by his wife. A celebration of life will be held on Monday, January 5th at 11 a.m. at St. Barnabas Episcopal Church in Falmouth. The next obituary is of Nancy Casey of Hingham, formerly of Falmouth, who passed December 7th at Linden Ponds at the age of 98. Services will be private. The next memorial is of Deborah A. Grabner of North Falmouth, who passed on December 9th, beloved wife of the late Robert Grabner. Visitation will be held on Monday, December 15th from 10 to 11 a.m. at the Folsom Funeral Home, 649 High Street in Westwood, followed by a funeral service at 11 a.m. in the funeral home. The interment will be Tuesday, December 16th at 11 a.m. in the North Falmouth Cemetery. Flowers are welcome at Folsom Funeral Home or memorial gifts to PBS, GBH, P.O. Box 55875, Boston, Mass. 02205, or online at wgbh.org. The next obituary is of James Hazelton, Jr. of Falmouth, who passed December 7th at the age of 87. A lifelong resident of Falmouth who worked as a truck driver, various businesses his whole life. Dedicated sportsman and marksman, he hunted locally for whichever game season was open. Jimmy is survived by his companion of 60 years, Judith Dow of Osterville. A visitation will take place on Saturday, December 13th from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations at 475 Main Street in Falmouth, with a funeral mass at 11 a.m. at St. Patrick's Church, 511 Main Street in Falmouth. A burial will follow at St. Joseph's Cemetery in Falmouth. The final obituary is of Rob Hazier, who passed on Monday, December 8th, at home in Falmouth, surrounded by his loving wife Marilyn and his devoted children, Eric and Annalise. He was born in Nazi-occupied Amsterdam, Holland, and was the older brother of Miniki, Jolly, and Peter. He emigrated to Montreal, Canada in 1966, moving soon to the U.S. They raised their children in Brookline, Mass., and Rob completed his education, getting a master's degree from BC. Rob, the real deal, had a lust for life, worshipped the sun, loved Dutch cheese and licorice, playing games and winning and singing along with Mozart. He found his spiritual home 35 years ago on a mesa in Monument Valley, Utah, where his spirit continues to soar. The family will receive visitors Monday from 2 to 4 p.m. and Tuesday from 5 to 7 p.m. A celebration of life will be held at a later date. The following residents, former residents, or family of residents of Bourne, Mashpee, and Sandwich recently died. Sean K. Budd, 56, of Sandwich, died on November 20th. Ellen K. Dublier, 81, of Mashpee, died December 4th. Margaret U.C. Goodman, 90, of Mashpee, died December 4th. Kathleen A. Haynes, 67, of Monument Beach, died December 2nd. James McLaughlin, 53, of Sandwich, died November 25th. Polly McCarthy, 71, of Sandwich, died on December 7th. Anne Marie McTeague, 80, of East Sandwich, died on December 7th. And Rosemary R. Roberts, 84, of Sandwich, died on December 6th. And we have come to the end of our memorials, obituaries, and death notices listed in the Falmouth Enterprise of Friday, December 12th of 2025. Heading back to the front of the paper, committee anticipates draft beach management plan by Lynn Hutchinson. Beach committee members invited representatives from the University of Massachusetts Boston's Urban Harbors Institute, along with town staff, department heads, and a select board liaison to attend its meeting on Wednesday, December 10th, in an effort to reestablish the committee's role in the development of the town's new beach management plan. Committee members emphasized that the plan must reflect shared ownership, transparency, and a collaborative approach that includes the vendor, town departments, and the public. We've had a lot of good conversations, Chairwoman Barbara Schneider said of the discussion. We've gotten a lot of things aired about how this committee feels that they have some ownership of this. A request for proposal was published by the town on July 17th, seeking qualified vendors to assist the town in developing an updated beach management plan. After the RFP closed on August 1st, Urban Harbors Institute, known as UHI, was awarded the project and began its work in September. UHI Director Kristen Yerdewick and research associates Shannon Hogan and Allison Novelli presented an update on the management plan's development. In attendance was Select Board Vice Chairwoman Heather Goldstone, Joshua Wrigley, the town's coastal resilience specialist, and Department of Public Works Director Peter McConerty. The study began in September with an extensive review of existing documents, including the town's 2008 Beach Management Plan, the Climate Action Plan, beach feasibility studies, and public access reports. Using this information, UHI has been evaluating previously made recommendations to understand how they relate to this plan and how they can be carried forward, Hogan said. The UHI team has been meeting bi-weekly with town staff and coastal engineering partner Geosyntec Consultants to review shoreline changes. They've also interviewed municipal staff, spoken with the Conservation Commission, and conducted site visits at all town beaches to assess public access, amenities, and both natural and human impacts on the shoreline. The last beach management plan was established in 2008. The new management plan will encompass 10 public beaches including Menahan, East and West, Bristol, Falmouth Heights, Surf Drive, Wood Neck, Chappaquiddick, Old Silver Beach, public and resident, and Megansett. Hogan noted that the final plan will outline detailed beach management protocols, including which departments are responsible for what activities, the timing of those activities, and how frequently they occur. A public survey to inform the plan received more than 720 responses, UHI representatives said. A draft of the management plan will be made available to the committee, town, and public on Friday, December 19th, ahead of an anticipated January 21st community input meeting. Committee Vice Chairman Joseph Strazula recommended that UHI develop a concise and clear plan that can be easily read and digested to prevent the plan from getting thrown on the shelf. The committee also called for a plan that places major recommendations at the front of the document, with technical or dense background information moved toward the end. The thing we care about as a committee is educating our community on where this is all going and why they need to care, Schneider said. McConerty underscored the need for a clear 3 to 5 year plan that outlines issues, priorities, and funding needs across town beaches. Beach Superintendent Maggie Clayton noted that the management plan also serves as a required resource for renewing the town's Order of Conditions with the Conservation Commission, which authorizes activities conducted on town-managed shorelines. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee votes to hold leadership elections in February, by Lynn Hutchinson. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee voted Tuesday night to move forward with nominating and electing a new chairperson and vice chairperson in February, but the decision sparked debate as one committee member expressed concerns about the approach. The new chair and vice chair will not assume leadership until July 1st. The recommendation was made by current committee chairman Alan Robinson, whose term ends June 30th of 2026. He urged the committee to consider a more formal transition process to ensure incoming officers are prepared. It would be valuable, Robinson said, about establishing a formal transition period. When my term ends, I'm going to put in less time. I'm not going to divorce myself from the committee, but I will put in less time. I would prefer to do the heavy lift in the next 6 months rather than doing it starting in July. That's my personal opinion, Robinson added before asking for committee input. Committee member Ruth Brazier was the only person who expressed concerns about an expedited vote and first raised concerns that creating chair-elect roles could give the outgoing leaders influence they shouldn't retain. I think it's necessary. I also think it's a bad idea, she began her remarks. It gives you a vote that you otherwise would not have. Robinson quickly addressed Brazier's worries, saying, I'd be happy to sit out or abstain from a vote that determines future leadership. Nonetheless, Brazier still had an issue, questioning whether this was an effort to address the lack of involvement by committee members who may soon be charged with leading it. This is very unusual, she said. In the past, it didn't seem necessary, and I don't think it's that difficult to get to know people. Maybe we're not involved enough if there is a real problem with continuity. Robinson praised the committee's work overall, noting that members consistently step forward with ideas and initiative. Still, he emphasized the importance of maintaining relationships built over time. This is the most phenomenal committee I have been on, Robinson said, pushing back. Phenomenal people. But relationships, I think, are really important. Other members strongly supported the idea of building in a transition period. "I think it makes a lot of sense," member Richard Merrick said. "That period where the person takes over is a hard time, and to do it from scratch is going to be really hard. By having a transitional period where whoever's going to be the next chair is actually paying attention to what you, meaning Robinson, would be doing is really helpful." Merrick pointed to Robinson's broad connections with other boards, the select board, and town staff as a reason a transition is critical. "Watching the number of connections you have is scary," Merrick told him. "Introducing the new chair to those people would be really, really helpful. If you're gone, I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen." Despite her initial opposition, Brazier ultimately joined the 8 other committee members in a unanimous vote favoring an earlier selection of the committee's new chairperson and vice chairperson. From the editorial board of the Falmouth Enterprise, "Community theater needs the community." An editorial. "We've made no secret of our love of community theater on Cape Cod and how the arts transcend town lines. The Cape has many impressive theaters with hundreds or more incredibly talented performers. Finding entertainment on our little man-made island is not a difficult task. However, many theaters are struggling to fill seats this year. There are a number of factors as to why that might be, but one particular thing that might be impacting theaters is that the region's only daily newspaper is no longer publishing theater reviews, and the 2 local newspapers that do can only cover so much ground. Shows performed from Barnstable to Falmouth are reviewed regularly in the Enterprise, while anything further east is reviewed in the Cape Cod Chronicle, and never the twain shall meet. This hurts the theater community. When people aren't aware that shows are being performed outside of their part of the Cape, they don't know that they're even missing out on something wonderful. The result is that folks who have spent months preparing a performance are playing to tiny audiences, and it's disheartening. Right now, multiple Cape Cod theaters have spectacular productions running. Only one is playing to sold-out audiences. And since that one is sold out and you're not likely to get off the waiting list, we wanted to highlight 3 other productions that are in need of patrons and whose performers deserve some community support. Into the Woods at Orleans Academy of Performing Arts. We're shamelessly promoting this one as our sandwich editor plays a leading role, but the Cape Cod Chronicles praised every aspect of this production, from the acting and singing to the set and costumes. The musical tells the story of some of Grimm's most famous fairy tale characters, their journeys to get their wishes and the consequences of getting them. The show's funny, sad, endearing, and smart, and loaded with talent hailing from anywhere between Mashpee to Provincetown. The Upper Cape Connection. Sandwich editor Katie Beattie Goers plays the baker's wife. Former Sandwich Library Vice Chairman Mike McCartney plays the baker. And why you should go? Besides all of the above, the stunning set's worth the trip and admission. Annie at Cape Cod Theater Company in the Harwich Junior Theater. This classic musical was yet another to receive a glowing review from the Cape Cod Chronicle, with particular praise going toward Rebecca Riley's Miss Hannigan, Ian Hamilton's Rooster, and Gianna Casali's Lily St. Regis. Annie's a great show for the holiday season. It's an easy choice when it comes to bringing children to see a show. Singing kids and a heartfelt message are the core of the show, which tells the story of an orphan girl who warms the heart of the wealthy Mr. Warbucks named Daddy. Rent at the Falmouth Theater Guild. This one's unique because it's actually a reprisal. The show did so well last fall, Joan Mackenzie Baird brought it back with the same cast and all. This musical tells the story of a group of friends in New York City around 1990 at the height of the AIDS epidemic. The music's become iconic. This production is a beautiful rendition of the show. Featuring some of the Cape's favorite performers, such as Sarah Sneed, who did Evita and Silver Threads, Alex Valentine, Kevin Keneally, and DJ Koska, this is a star-studded production with a killer set and top-notch musicians backing up the stellar vocalists. Why you should go. Even if you saw this cast last year, Mackenzie Baird says it's not going to be the same show. More recently, she told us rehearsals have been interesting because the actors have all grown, both personally and professionally, making for performances bringing more depth and meaning to the characters than last time. Seems like a pretty good way to measure a year. Our next headline in the Falmouth Enterprise of December 12th, committees present 20-year CPA spending impact, harbor repair needs, and beach program review by Lynn Hutchinson. 3 committee chairpersons went before the Select Board on December 1st to provide a report of their respective committees. Whether preserving land, tending to the harbors, or managing the town's beaches, all 3 representatives focused on success and challenges in addressing town needs. The Community Preservation Committee Chairwoman, Sandra Cuny, reported that since the establishment of the Community Preservation Act in 2005, the Community Preservation Fund has contributed nearly $82 million in projects addressing community housing, recreation, historical preservation, open space, and development of the town's land bank. The largest spending was in the town's land bank. CUNY informed the Select Board the town has set aside the remaining funds needed to pay off the debt collected in the acquisition of land for the protection of the town's drinking water supplies, open space, and conservation. About 35.5%, $29,072,824 of the total CPA contribution since fiscal year 2006 was spent on the land bank. More than $19 million has been spent on community housing. Recreation and open space projects totaled nearly $21 million. In the last 20 years, $10,152,473 was spent on historic preservation. CUNY highlighted several projects approved at town meeting back in April, including Phase 2 of the replacement of the John L. Neal Youth Baseball Fields, Mullen Hall School playground renovation, the future YMCA outdoor community recreation spaces, and Lawrence School rehabilitation. Looking ahead, CUNY said, the committee recently endorsed funding for the replacement of Taft's Playground in Woods Hole, the reshingling of the Penikese Island School building, and restoration of gravestones in 2 cemeteries. The committee also supported allocating $2 million to the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. All of these recommendations will be brought to town meeting in the spring. Waterways Committee Chairman Joseph Voci began his report by remembering former committee member Charles Eastman Jr., who died last year. Eastman led the effort to install a new boat ramp at West Falmouth Harbor, one of several projects completed this year. Other notable waterway improvements included new docks and ramps at Megansett Harbor and Eel Pond. Landing replacement at Falmouth Harbor's Simpson Landing was also completed. Dredging work was completed at the entrances to Falmouth Harbor, Great Pond, and Green Harbor, with the material used to nourish town beaches. One challenge the committee faced was financial. Bids to renovate the ramp at Great Harbor in Woods Hole came in significantly over budget, but the harbor itself is in very, very bad shape, Voci said. The town has posted signs restricting vehicle size and weight on the dock until repairs can be made. Widening the Eel River channel to reduce water velocity in the area was also a challenge. The committee had hoped for a 300-foot expansion, but was only able to achieve 35 feet because of limitations tied to surrounding privately and state-owned property. To help guide future decisions, the committee has formed 2 new subcommittees. One will evaluate whether the town's moorings are being used efficiently, and the other to create a priority list for dredging needs across town. From the Beach Committee Chairwoman Barbara Schneider told the Select Board that the town's pilot program allowing food trucks at select beaches this past summer was a big success. The popularity of the vendors even influenced residents' beach choices throughout the summer, she said. After meeting with vendors at the end of the season, the committee is recommending changes to the next RFP, or request for proposals. Their recommendations call for food trucks stationed at Old Silver, Falmouth Heights, Bristol, Chappaquoit, and Surf Drive beaches, along with roving vendors, such as coffee or ice cream trucks that can serve beaches without stationed vendors or fill in when fixed vendors are closed. Schneider urged the town to issue an RFP before the end of the year so vendors have adequate time to plan for the 2026 season. She also highlighted the beach department's ongoing search for a new headquarters. The current Surf Drive bathhouse, she said, is in poor condition, with mice urine contamination, dangerous parking, and aging infrastructure. Horrid is how Schneider described the current building. A feasibility study funded by a 2024 town meeting appropriation will evaluate whether 10 Pumping Station Road could house the department, and that money must be used before June of 26. Committee Vice Chairman Joseph Struzula pressed the Select Board to reinvest beach-generated revenue back into the department. The beach program's income far exceeds its expenses, averaging around $500,000 annually, Struzula said. Yet in the committee's eyes, the lack of reinvestment in contributing to shrinking beach sizes, outdated facilities, and deteriorating equipment. My pitch today, Struzula said, is to take that differential that's collected from the general public and put it back on the beaches. And our final story, hearing continues for Benjamin Nye's Lane 40B project. This is reported by Katie Nelson. The Zoning Board continued its review of Habitat for Humanity's 14-home affordable workforce housing project at 48 Benjamin Nye's Lane and 0 Quaker Road in North Falmouth on December 4th. The project's in partnership with the 300 Committee Land Trust, which purchased the land at 48 Benjamin Nye's Lane, a roughly 56-acre property from Ruth and Stephen Augusta. The purchase is being made in installments, with a final payment due in January of 2026. The 300 Committee will preserve 48 acres of woodland for conservation and reserve 7.5 acres for the Habitat for Humanity project. Warren Brody, legal representation for Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod, said the team at Habitat had only received feedback from the town's peer review engineering report 2 days before the hearing and didn't have time to address the comments made by the engineer. Engineer David Gagney of Beals & Thomas made a presentation of the comprehensive review of the project. Gagney addressed some concerns with the width of Benjamin Nye's Lane and the width of the entrance to the subdivision, outdoor lighting, and the historic rock wall, which may have to be relocated or shortened to be saved. The wall may interfere with sight lines for cars pulling out of the development, Gagney said. Members of the board expressed disappointment at the removal of the wall. Habitat for Humanity engineers have discussed the idea of reducing the wall's height to improve sight lines. Brody said those comments would be addressed in future hearings. Gagney said none of his comments in the review will be insurmountable for the developers to address. Abutter Catherine Truman said she had concerns regarding ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which are allowed for single-family dwellings by right. She wanted to ensure each of the 14 homes would not be adding an ADU. Truman suggested also that the town look into making Benjamin Nye's Lane a one-way road. Truman said she thought duplexes or triplexes might be a better use of the land. Rather than what she called Lego block houses, a townhouse could be more desirable economically and aesthetically. This is a site plan from 1965. We've evolved from this, Truman said. Ruth Brazier, a resident of Benjamin Nye's Lane, said she had concerns about increased traffic as the road is frequently used by walkers, bikers, people walking dogs, and runners. She also agreed with Truman and said she supported the idea of increasing the density of the project by including duplexes. Habitat for Humanity will review each of the engineering peer reviews and address each hearing before the next public hearing on January 15th. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Falmouth Enterprise, dated Friday, December 12th of 2025. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.